And one of the things that I like to say to my students is plural marriage, just like monogamous marriage, had a lot of different responses. There are some people who, for plural marriage was the worst thing that ever happened to them. There are other people that plural marriage was the best thing that ever happened to them, women and men. What I'm trying to say is it's a lot like monogamous marriage. For some people, monogamous marriage has been the worst thing in their life. For other things, it's been the best. For others, they didn't have the opportunity or don't have the opportunity, weren't asked to. Laura Thatchell-Orich, back in her book, she summarizes this, quote, "Plural marriage provoked wildly divergent emotions. Augusta Cobb rejoiced, calling plural marriage glorious. Emma Smith raged. Violet Kimball urged caution. Mother Moon collapsed in despair." That's just a wonderful summary of the way different people responded to plural marriage as a whole. Well, we have one revelation that deals with plural marriage in the Doctrine and Covenants, and it's section 132. I'm going to show you these. These are off Joseph Smith Paper's website. Received a revelation in the office in the presence of Hiram and William Clayton. This revelation, section 132, a lot of it was given directly to Emma Smith. And it was meant to address Emma Smith's concerns and reservations and hesitations over plural marriage. Hiram Smith felt that when he learned about it, if Joseph could just write the word of the Lord on the subject, that it would convince Emma. Now, Joseph had likely been practicing plural marriage for a handful of years already and had been married to a number of women, some of which Emma knew about, and there are some that Emma did not know about. And I'll talk about that with you in a minute as well. And when Joseph wrote this revelation, he then gives it to Hiram, and Hiram takes it to Emma and comes back later and then says to Joseph, "I have never received a more severe talking to in my entire life." Now, we know that story. Some of you have likely heard that story. We've heard that, but what we forget is that Joseph had to go home that day, and he had to talk to Emma and continue this difficult discussion with them. So on Wednesday, July 12th, is when we get the revelation, today found in section 132. Notice this in Joseph's journal the next day, Thursday, July 13th. Talks about Shadrach Ramsey, that's my third great-grandfather, returns from Springfield and gives a report. But then notice at the bottom right here, in conversation with Emma most of the day. Now, you don't have to be married for more than 5 minutes to understand and interpret that line, what in conversation with Emma most of the day probably means. Joseph is a busy, busy person at this time. There are very few days where he's home most of the day talking to Emma. Likely we could translate that as in argument or in hard discussions, in disagreements with Emma most of the day. We know this because 4 days later, Monday, July 17th, notice what it says, mostly at home. And then look at this down here. 4 days last passed in hell or purgatory, says William Clayton. That's what those symbols and things mean. 4 days last passed since he wrote the revelation on plural marriage in purgatory. This is a painting that I did trying to show the difficulty of Joseph and Emma over plural marriage. Emma, who believes in the prophetic role of her husband, always did her whole life, who loves her husband deeply. Joseph, who is a prophet, but who has received this difficult revelation, who loves the Lord and Emma with all of his heart. This revelation, you can see it, I placed it in the painting in between them because it did come between them and create a lot of difficulty for them. There's indications, by the way, that Joseph and Emma likely talked about getting divorced over this. Joseph will deed Emma during this time period 60 city lots and give her ownership of half of a business, a steamboat that they have. Maybe trying to say to Emma, let me set you up financially if we separate and divorce. It was difficult for them. I painted them in front of this fireplace, the fire symbolizing the heat, the difficulty that it was causing, the rocks, the difficult rock in a hard place they were in. The beam symbolizes kind of Abrahamic sacrifice that they were asked to bear, this cross they were asked to bear as a whole. You can see Joseph kind of sitting and he's looking to the side. He won't quite look Emma in the eyes, and Emma's sitting there with her arms folded and defiant and bold and angry and hurt and vulnerable all at the same time. In between the two of them in the rocks, I also painted in that little shorthand symbol that symbolizes purgatory there that you can see.